This is First Baptist Church, Piney Grove, and this is Black History at Piney Grove with Pastor Tillman. I'm excited that you came back with us to share as we lift up some of the rich history of our church, as well as prominent people who have made this congregation and made this church what it has been down through the years. And today we have a special guest with us, Brother Robert Mckinzie, no stranger to the Fort Lauderdale area, but he has done so much great work around the city. I believe it needed to be highlighted and recorded for those to know, even those who come to this church, of who he is and what he's done in the community. So share with us today, Brother Mckinzie, your church experience growing up, you know, how you took a lens to service through the church, how you want to lean back in the church and do certain work, what led you in that kind of space to place. Just share with the congregation and those who are watching, you know.
First of all, thank you, Pastor, for inviting me.
Thank you.
I always have to go back to my humble beginnings. That's my parents.
Yeah.
My parents brought me up in the church. And I often tell you that I was not Baptist. I was born and raised Catholic. First to 12th grade. And in 2001, my father passed. And my mother left the Catholic Church. And she went in search of, as she was doing her studying, reading her Bible, and having the number one conversation with God, she landed upon Piney Grove, the old Piney Grove Church. And I've always gone to church with my parents. And when my mother left the Catholic Church, I came and joined her here at Piney Grove and found a great experience, a great home. And I came in immediately just listening. And people want to pull you in all type of directions. Come join this committee, come join that committee. I said, no, when God moves me, that's when I'll do something. Yeah. And shortly thereafter, he moved me. And my work began here at the church under Pastor Hughes, but we had an interim pastor before that. But I got involved in the ministries and everything from trustee.
Okay.
Even when we dissolved the trustee board, I was a part of that. I was a part of the real estate handling of the church. I was a part of the Constitution, rewriting it. And we did these things because when new leadership comes in, you expect changes. Sometimes people are afraid of change, but we embrace it. And the beauty of it was I had a older member here, Beauregard Cummings. I mean, you speak his name, you speak a calm over anything. Yeah. And Beauregard really pulled me in and got me into various aspects of being a bondservant, of being a servant for the Lord. Yeah. And I even helped the opening of the boys' school here, the Boys and Girls School here at the church. And they were struggling with some permitting issues and stuff. And the Bowdens reached out along with Beauregard Cummings, and we were able to get the permits to get the doors open. Yeah. And the school has since been here, prospered. And we didn't come out the gate swinging. There was some hard times. There were some good times, but you always have to keep reevaluating yourselves anytime that you make these type of investments, especially in human resources. And we're talking about our kids. And so that's kind of my experience here at the church. Yeah. And now you're here. Exciting, new, and I pledge to you and to the Lord that whatever I can do to help move Piney Grove forward, that's what I'm going to do.
Thank the Lord, man.
So I'm not going to listen to people. I'm going to listen to the Lord, and I'm going to do what I've learned in my readings, which is you support the head of the church.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. It makes a loud statement when you find other leaders that will follow a leader. It's different than certain crowds. When you see leadership that aligns with leadership, it sends a larger message of where you're going. But you mentioned about coming here and being with your mom, and then you finding your way to service. Prior to that, did you do any public service or any service in the church prior to that, or you started that here at Piney Grove?
Oh, I did it at the Catholic Church, St. George Church. Okay. It was there. I joined a lot of the leadership in the church, whether it was working with the kids with catechism or just being an advisor to the priest at that particular time. And whatever it is we were trying to do from a vision of a black church. We had a black Catholic church. Mm-hmm. So we had different perspectives. It was still one God, one religion, but it was taking care of that community over in St. George. So we had our own vision, and there was things we had to do for that community, outreach and things of that nature. My parents were right at the forefront, well, with a lot of the pioneers of Fort Lauderdale. I learned from them. And it was so rewarding that they named a building after my father and
Wow.
his good works over there. And there's another gentleman, Jim Hill, who helped us get that church from the archdiocese for us, because we grew up in Annunciation on 2nd Street, which is now where the Boys and Girls Club is. And when I was coming up, I didn't see the black and white only water fountains, but we weren't allowed to go to the white Catholic churches.
Okay.
So I was baptized and raised in Annunciation until we got that church over in the Parkway of the St. George community, as you know it now. So we had some struggles there. I mean, there were struggles probably everywhere you look coming up I was born in 1962. So a lot of things were changing. My parents dealt with it. My older siblings probably experienced it more so than me. But I benefited from my parents' labor. I'm the fruit.
So are you the baby?
No, I'm the knee baby.
You the knee baby.
A lot of people think I'm the baby. Some people think I'm the only child.
All right.
But it's 6 of us.
Okay.
It's 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls. We're all known here in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
And we walk different walks of life. But we've all made contributions here in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm a public servant, too. I know you were kind of reaching at that. I'm not a politician. I've never, ever gravitated to the word politician because I think...
State your claim, man. Let them know how you feel about it, you know?
I'm
Speak
a
your
public
piece.
servant.
Public servant. I like that.
You
I
know,
like
when
that.
you come into Christianity, you're a bond servant for the Lord.
Yes, sir.
So it's no similar than what we do as public servants. Some people take public servant and they get political with it, and it blows your head up. And what I wanted to do was be a part of building something, be a part of the community, be a part of history, and be a part of the community that I grew up in.
You was raised in the 60s, so that says a lot. That's in the midst of Black America coming to its own pride. Leaders such as Malcolm X, Edgar Megavers, you got Dr. King, you got Star Michael, all these voices are coming up in that time, whatever. And in the midst of that, I guess you going towards school, Dr. King dies, and everything shifts. You mentioned about your dad working in the community, whatever, and working through the church, even to the point where there was a building named after him, which is tremendous, right? You know, a monument to a body of work. Usually, that happens when you die, right?
Right.
But they don't celebrate the heroes when they live. They celebrate when they die. But you had a history, a model that before you. And as you grew up and watching that, how did it shape you and you get involved to be that public servant to the same community that you saw transition over a 40-year period of time? We in 2024, you was born in the 60s. You've seen a lot of different transitions. What made you get in that space to make that difference?
I've seen a lot, but I think when we were coming up, because we lived in Black neighborhoods, we had the Black family, we had the village, if you will.
Yeah.
And the big thing back then was you get an education and you move out and you do better. I think it was a miseducation as I look back in my life, because we should have gotten the education and moved back, preserve those communities, rebuild those communities, sustain them, and then we wouldn't be looking at what we look at now when most people say they're taking our neighborhoods, gentrification, and when you look at it, nobody's taking it. We're either giving it away, we're selling it, or we're losing it because we won't pay taxes. And in a lot of cases with my generation, we've moved so far out and so far away, we only come back to go to the church that we went to when we were young kids. My church is no longer in St. George community. They tore it down. with my father's name on it. And a lot of other historical things are gone in those communities because we didn't come back and preserve those things. And now it's the bestest, cheapest real estate around and close in proximity to downtown and to the beach. So it's desirable. But when I look at gentrification, it is to rebuild, build back to middle class, where we grew up, where Piney Grove was founded, was built on that first rock in that neighborhood. We're over here on Oakland Park Boulevard now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not a knock. We've grown,
Right.
but how do we preserve these communities? You're going to need people like me,
Right.
that's going to fight to preserve it. You're going to need the seniors. I mean, my biggest attribute were the seniors embraced me and guided me when I became a public servant. I lost my first 3 races 20-something years ago. I never had a desire to be a city of Fort Lauderdale commissioner. I've always wanted to be a county commissioner. It took me 23 years to get there. Took me 3 losses. Took me about 9 years at the city of Fort Lauderdale. And now I'm in my 2nd year as a county commissioner. I've completed my work in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And now I'm at the county trying to do what I wanted to do way back then. There's some unincorporated pockets that have no representation in terms of having a mayor, a city manager, and city commissioners. They're unincorporated. They never got incorporated. So they get a different type of service. So I got a lot of work to do there. I plan to be there 12 years doing that. But I think I did a very good job in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And when you ride down the 6 Trunk Corridor,
Call it out, man. I was going to go there.
you get an opportunity to
Tell
see
your
all
story,
the
man.
things
Tell
that,
your story, man. Okay.
that we were doing. And it's not just me. I mean, because there were people that came before me. I mean, Carter Bohr had a vision. You mentioned the great leaders of the past, Dr. Martin Luther King and all. They dreamed, they fought, they sacrificed for us to carry on. I'm a firm believer that I don't have time to dream. And people think I'm crazy when I say these type of things. It's time to build.
I agree.
It's time to buy.
I agree.
It's time to have some type of economic engine collectively, like we used to have when we were coming up. Now we take our money out of our neighborhoods, if we're in the neighborhood, and we spend them in other neighborhoods.
Let's talk about that because, we had a conversation and I mentioned, formerly being in Flint, Michigan and watching what took place there in the middle of a water crisis. Everything around us plummeted down. Factories are moved. Homes are abandoned. And then downtown, they're putting millions of dollars on the waterfront of poison water. Right. So what's the futuristic plan 20, 30 years where you can put millions of dollars on the waterfront of bad water in a city that lies in ruin? And for me, starting to travel around the country, see different places, and particularly black areas or whatever, you've seen that it was, in my terms, of being gentrified because it was making it so it was difficult for those persons who were there because they were changing the lanes. They was putting, parking restrictions and they was raising the prices and they were building lofts and people were moving in and making it not affordable for people to stay there. So I looked at it from the lens of pushing people out. The same place that was the ghetto, now, you got Starbucks and you got Whole Foods. You're like, wait a minute, a couple of years ago, this was the hood. Now you can't find a rat and a roach nowhere. You know, how did you change that overnight? So that was my lens that you shared about the point of what I hear you say Dr. King lens was, because the Dr. King that died was the one who's saying that we need to go to Washington and cut our check.
Exactly.
We want our 40 acres and a mule, right? So now when you speak of your work, in that area which we will call gentrifying, you come to the same area, same space you was raised in, and you remember the patriarchs and matriarchs who built and had stores and were doctors and all the above, and you said, I'm gonna build here, and I'm gonna build for the little me's 40 years ago. So tell us about some of that work. Going with you to the YMCA and walk around and see your picture on the wall. It was different to see, man. Just a common guy walking through. I wouldn't know unless I saw it on the wall. So explain, what was your desire to do that type of work in your community?
Well, I don't know about Flint, Michigan, but I always say in every city there's railroad tracks.
That's right.
And in between those
on the
railroad,
other side of the river in Flint.
And
Yeah.
in between those railroad tracks were black communities thriving. I mean, you can go all the way to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go.
Right.
The story is the same.
That's right.
But we moved out. And when we moved out, we didn't protect what was there. When I grew up, it wasn't a ghetto. It wasn't a hood. It was a neighborhood. And I don't allow people to say hood around me because they want you to crown that phrase hood so they can devalue,
Yeah.
come in and build these new treasures. But it was a treasure when I was there. It was a treasure when I was there. And I moved a couple of times, but I always had real estate in the neighborhood. I always purchased. And I moved out to Plantation one time. Plantation. Think of that name. But I was running for office.
Right.
And it was a diverse seat. So I needed votes from the other side of town too. So I bought that house to run. People thought I bought that house for the luxury. But I did not buy that house, but I bought the house to run. I bought several houses because I really wanted to represent my community, but they kept withdrawing the districts. So if you don't get your seat in 10 years,
Yes, sir.
they'll draw you out. Somebody like you might draw it. Whoever's in that seat has the luxury of the pen. And so when I finally got in, I was blessed to be in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Carter Moore had done a bunch of work there in the district, but spent 18 years there, never got to the finish line. The others came behind him, and when I got there, I kept saying, I don't have time to dream. I got to build. And they would often ask me in commission meetings because typically when it's one black on a commission, you're always outvoted. I had a great commission then. I was able to get everything that I needed for my neighborhood. And my philosophy was very simple. We want the same thing that you all want. And if you took a piece of paper right now today and you wrote down what you wanted in your community, I want the same thing. No, safe parks,
Yeah.
policing, good schools, restaurants,
Public service.
services.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
And an opportunity presented itself where the YMCA wanted to come into our community, and they wanted to put it at the very end of the street, right at that threshold between the East and the West, or white and black. And my thing was, if we put it there, it probably won't be
Servicing the black.
servicing the black
Yes,
community.
sir. Yes, sir.
We had an opportunity to seize a public piece of property that was no longer in use, which was the Von D. Mizell Center, and once the prominent grounds of Providence Hospital, the only hospital that we can go to back in the day when we couldn't go to the public white hospital.
So it's a historical landmark.
Historical landmark.
Gotcha.
But they tore those three renditions of those buildings were torn down 3 times.
Right.
And then the OIC came in there, and then we tore down OIC, which was a job training for reentry for convicted felons. And then we tore that down. We built a library. That library was replaced with the African Research Library you see at 27th Avenue in Sistrunk.
Okay.
So the books left and went down to the research library. It was a building there. Okay. It kind of became this hub, this community hub. And then later on, asbestos, and the building was deemed inhabitable. And I said, let's do it at this site. We did it at that site. We got some pushback from some folks who lived and played with me. But I walked with my seniors, the Covingtons, Deacon Covington and Beauregard Cummins, Miss Simmons, Miss Smalls, a couple of the Mizell descendants. Just a cross section. Kathy Copeland, not Kathy Copeland, but Miss Copeland. I named Miss Baylor, Miss Jessie Adler. Just people who are from the Sixth Front Court. Mickey Hinton, his wife, people who were raised in that community, who built that community, would cheer me on.
Yeah.
Let's get this done.
Yeah.
And it was a long fight, but you see today a $22 million investment.
Yes, sir.
With no debt.
Yes, sir.
With no debt. We use CRA dollars. Because when you see those areas between the track or on the other side of the river in Flint, those are CRAs where the federal government has to invest money there. But for years, if we weren't there to drink from that fountain of the investment dollars, the opportunities weren't there. We didn't seize the moment.
Yeah.
So when I got there, we had so much money sitting there, and the clock was ticking. So in 2025, it terminates. So I'm like, let's build it.
Time to build.
Let's build it.
Yeah.
And I didn't just want to spend $100,000. I want to spend as much as we can. But we sat in a room, cross section of people, and we just started throwing things at the board of what we wanted. And we started with $1 million. And when we finished, it was a $22 million investment, $10 million from the city of Fort Lauderdale's CRA, $12 million from the YMCA's efforts for capital fundraising. And it's a debt-free building that has everything that looks like our community in it.
Yes, sir.
And more. And more.
And a college in it, man.
College.
Yeah.
There's a daycare. There's a gymnasium.
A theater?
There's a theater that we kind of modeled after the old Victory Theater. Did you hear some of our pioneers here in the church? So we used to go to the Victory Theater.
Yeah.
I went there with my sisters and brothers a long time ago, but we didn't even own that theater. But it was in our community. It was ours.
Yeah.
And so we put that in there. We put a lot of history in there because I've learned that they'll tear down a building with your name on it. So we have to make sure we sustain these buildings, or be thinking ahead for the future. And when you build these new buildings, put the history in the new building.
That's right. That's right.
Put the history in the new building out. This building should stand for another 75 years. I won't be here, but maybe your son and my son's sons will be able to take that torch and move to the next level. But you got to have vision. You got to be able to go back and see a neighborhood so blighted, so run down, and be able to see that house you lived in, or that store you used to go to and get the penny cookies, and rebuild it.
I like it because I'm trying to share with my peers and my kids. Owning means something.
Yes.
Having something that reflects who you are, where you come from, where you're going. As you said, these become landmarks, and because you live through seeing these transitions like that, what would you say to the next generation for those who are maybe consumed with their own things and finally living in life? What would you say to them about leaving a legacy and doing something that will contribute back to a community?
It's going to be very difficult now because of social media and all the things that distract our kids. So if you don't pour into them as a father and a mother, we got to bring back the family values. And we got to teach our own history. We got to show them where I once lived. We got to show them the treasure in these neighborhoods. Because a lot of our kids are growing up in these suburbs. They go to the refrigerator anytime they want. They eat anything they want. They get anything they want.
Yeah.
But they're not getting what we got. They're not
That's right.
getting
Yes, sir.
what we got. So, I mean, it's going to be up to us.
That's a mouthful.
I was fortunate. I spent a lot of time at the feet of the elders, listening. And sometimes people talk to me and say, how do you know all this stuff? I had so many people. And even now, if I do a function, a social, the average age of my friends is 75 to 90-something years old. I'm talking about ride or die. I'm talking about texting in the morning. I'm talking about working out at the YMCA. I'm talking about stopping by my home and say, hey, Commissioner, you okay?
Hey, old folks are cool. You hear me? They here. I'm telling you.
They here.
Listen, I'm sitting there talking to you and I'm looking at it, right? So you got 20 years on me. I don't see you as an old head.
I don't know if I have 20 years.
You got 20 years on me.
You're playing with the math.
You got 20 years on me, man. You got me.
But look at me.
You got me. I'm 81, baby. You got me.
You're 81, baby?
I'm 81, baby. You got me.
I was coming out of...
You got to tell your story. But the point is...
81.
Old school is cool. So
I appreciate that.
I mean, it's real.
It
so
is.
I say the same thing.
I love old school.
Growing up, I do too. I do too. My kids... They Al Green and Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke lovers like I was growing up. This is my dad music, right? It sets you apart. It gives you appreciation for your history. And I think even today, what makes this valuable is that someone can identify with you by who you are, not knowing the wisdom you have from all those who poured into you above. And you keep saying that I found treasure in my elders. I spent time, I sat, I listened, teach me how to play chess, teach me how to play tonk. You know, I had a buddy of mine post something the other day. He's like, man, these young guys know how to play spades.
No.
All they do is play video games. I said, we got to teach them so they don't want to learn. Well, if they're going to spend time with the old head, you're going to learn how to play tonk and play spades.
And checkers.
And checkers too, right?
Yeah, checkers.
So that's the thing. So finding space to spend time with your elders speak a lot about how we preserve our history, because tradition, that's how we received it. You passed it down. Like in the Jewish culture, they passed it down. They told them, they taught them, they shared with them, spent time with them. And you said if it gets back to family core and values, it has to start in church.
It's got to start in church.
And has to spread abroad.
It starts in the church, in your home, is where it starts. If it doesn't start there, you have already lost the foundation of building community or building a family. It's a foundation. And that's where I got my start from. I don't give my credit to going to St. Anthony's or St. Thomas or Bethune-Cookman College. Yes, those are places where my parents directed me.
Yeah.
My foundation was my family, my parents. They weren't doctors, they weren't lawyers, but they did what was necessary to take care of their family and make sure they provided all the things we needed, not all the things we wanted.
So thank you, Brother Mckinzie, for coming. I appreciate it, man, for just being you.
Amen.
Hey, I seen you in the street. I saw you move, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got to give you credit, man. You the same everywhere you go. I appreciate it. So with that being said, when we have lived our life, and whenever God calls us to transition and to leave this world, what do you want to leave behind after all these years of service, after all these years of serving God, after all these years of being an obedient, loving son, being a servant in the church and abroad? What is that you want or you would like to leave for your children, your children's children, to say about Pop Mckinzie?
Well, I want them to understand the legacy of my family, the legacy of the community in which they grew up in. And more importantly, I want them to know that I left it better than I found it. And if we do that, I mean, I think our children will have a better opportunity. And again, it starts right here at church. It starts in the home.
Yes,
you got to teach them. You have to teach kids. You have to teach them. And in this world, it's a little tougher.
Yeah.
But in my house, it's not that tough because that's my house. When you go outside those doors, it's a different world. And I want you to be prepared for it. So we got to prepare the children for the world.
Yes, sir.
That's what we have to do. So I want to leave this place better than I found it.
Servant well done. You've been faithful a few things. God bless you. Thank you, Brother Mckinzie. Black History at Piney Grove.